Guess what? We're back in the cave. We're back in the pit. We're back in the closet, the Kung Fu Closet.
Kung Fu Closet.
To do another episode of Kung Fu Conversations. Absolutely. Let's do off our list real quick. My name is Randel Davis. I have a small Wing Chun group that I teach here and there at 5280 Shaolin, as well as my kitchen kun, if you will. You can find me in my little training group, Red Force Chinese Boxing. You can find us on all of the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and whatnot. And your school, sir?
My school's Boulder Internal Arts over here in Boulder, Colorado. You can check me out on Facebook, although I'm not super responsive on Facebook.
Yeah, you're also on Instagram too.
I am
on
on
find
Instagram.
you there.
Yeah, you could definitely
same thing.
Yeah, you can definitely DM me on there if you wanted to get a hold of me.
That's where all the dirty messages come in through the back door.
The angry messages.
The angry messages. Yeah. You sons of bitches. We are Kung Fu Conversations. You can find us on email or Gmail, kungfuconversations@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at KF Conversations. We have a Facebook page. So if you want to get a hold of us, I run those venues. So reach out and say hello. We also have a great YouTube page. We have a fantastic Fourth Door account, which is attached to our YouTube page as well as our Instagram page, where you can pick up some awesome new swag.
We got some good merch.
Yeah, we got some sweet merch. We just dropped a new shirt that is a tip of the hat to Big Trouble in Little China. And our secret mascot, Sophie, is a big part of that one. She's given Lopan the business in that shirt, and it's pretty fantastic. You can also support our show at Buy Me a Coffee. It's Kung Fu Con Pod at Buy Me a Coffee. And today's topic is it's a nasty one. This is a nasty one. I love this one.
We laughed a little bit when we were talking about what we were going to cover today. So, and this, I don't know if this is something that happens in like other martial arts, but I've come across it quite a bit in Chinese martial arts. And it's really the fact that a lot of teachers that I have met, they complain a lot about the lack of skill in today's generation, the lack of skill among practitioners and among maybe their students. But at the same time, these same people are very secretive. They don't want to be open. They don't want to teach. They don't want to show any of how to get to the skill levels that they have or how their teacher got it. And I find that extremely hypocritical.
You'll never find them on YouTube. You'll never find them on any of you'll find them on the forums spewing garbage. And that's about the best that they do is they get on the forums or they might get on a podcast here and there and they spew garbage and they shit on the next generations more and more and more. And again, you'll never find their stuff anywhere to be seen. You might find their cousins or their brothers or sisters in training, and they've always got criticisms on these folks. And it's sad. It's a tragedy. I mean, we live in a time where Chinese martial arts are basically fizzling and dying out. And I think we're in a time too where we have a lot of platforms where we can start to have one, conversations about training, and two, we can actually share these things so they don't die out. You know, it was interesting. One of our good friends, Byron Jacobs, said something, and I'll never forget this because I had mentioned a distant relative of a system that I study in, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy," and we're not going to name anybody names, and you know. And Byron said something that I'll never forget. He's like, "Listen, if your skill can be taken off of a video, then it's not that high."
Yes.
It's not that good.
100%.
Because if you can watch a little 30-second tidbit or even 5-10 minutes to an hour and without any instruction, somebody on the outside can see that, copy it, and get that skill, then something's wrong. It's very basic. There's no high ability there.
Yeah, and I would also add to that by saying that at least in the internal martial arts, I don't know how it is for, other types of martial arts, but in the internal martial arts, a lot of people, especially high-level practitioners, are very they pride themselves on their skills.
Sure.
and their abilities.
Sure.
But you watch, and if you have contact with these people, you can feel
Sure.
what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And they will show you what they're doing. They won't teach you what they're doing, but they will demonstrate on you what their skill and what their ability is. And so everybody goes, wow. And so they have a lot of students, but then those students don't have their skill, which is, and we've talked about this before, which is why, when I always recommend when people go to a school and talk to a teacher that they don't necessarily, they'll see the teacher, right? And the teacher's got the skill.
Of course.
Sure. Teacher's got the good skills, but the people you need to look at are their senior students.
Yes.
Are those senior students replicating the same skills, maybe not to the same level,
Sure.
but to a reasonable degree,
A proficiency.
they have a proficiency as the teacher. And if you don't see that, leave, because there's no point. Like, you go to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, you're going to see some bad motherfuckers in there.
That's exactly
for a
right.
teacher who's been teaching for a while. Their students, their top students, are going to have some kick-ass skills. Same with Thai boxers. Same with other martial arts.
Western boxing.
Yep. Exactly. And yet, here we are talking about the Chinese martial arts as we do on our Kung Fu Conversations podcast, right? And there's a definitive lack of that. There's all kinds of lineages out there that have maybe are either weak or they have sort of gone extinct. People who my grand teacher was so and so, or this guy, or that guy, or this famous guy, or this. What doesn't mean anything. Was he a good teacher? Did he pass it on? Who knows? Can somebody else demonstrate the skill?
That's exactly. It's funny you're talking about this too, because one of my favorite interviews that we've had on the show, not that I don't love every single one of them, but Russ Smith talks about that quite a bit. He's he's like, I am a classical martial artist. He does Kobudo, the Japanese weaponry. He does Goju Ryu. He's a Pakmei practitioner as well as a Filipino Eskrima practitioner. And then, does the Wuzu Kwan, which he's starting to get notoriety for. But he's like, listen, all the hardware's there, baby. I'm keeping the forms. I'm keeping the drills. I'm updating the software. Mm-hmm. How are these systems taught in the modern day? Another one that I did, and hope to have him back on the show. Maybe we'll get you on this one too, was Kevin Sekurs. Mm-hmm. I always joked with Kevin. I'm like, and we did the show over October, and so I kind of gave the Halloween theme. I'm like, listen, you've kind of Frankenstein's monster your system. You've taken from the Indonesian arts, you've taken from the Filipino arts, you've taken from the Chinese martial arts. But his big core too are the Russian Sistema and Japanese Goju, or not Japanese Goju, but Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. Mm-hmm. And he's like, listen, I can honor my origin points. He's like, as a matter of fact, we do that when we start our class. We'll bow to each other. We bow to our, the lineages and the past people. And then, we bow to the training that we're about to receive. But he has updated how he teaches and trains classical martial arts. Now, Russ might be a better example because he's kept the systems the way they are.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, I think it's something we have to look at. I think another thing too is, and you might get some rebuttal, and I can understand that, and we've covered this on the show too, is they might not be ready for those steps.
Sure.
But
there's a big but in there.
Yeah. And it's the question too is anybody ready? I don't know.
Yeah. The other part of what I was going to mention before is exactly this. Thank you for the segue.
You're welcome.
Is exactly this point, which is, hey, you know what? If you don't think I'm ready, okay, I understand. But when will somebody be ready? Is there an objective criteria that I can live up to? I find that the teachers who are super secretive,
that is so interesting,
will not define that for you. They're looking, it's, oh, you're just not ready. You're just not good enough. Okay, well then, what is good enough? So let's.
What are the steps to get me there?
Well, yeah, that's the second part of it. First, you have to define the objective, and then let's walk that backwards, and then say, okay, well, what do I need to do to get there specifically? Like, not in some sort of, you need to learn to do X, Y, Z. No, I need steps. Give me tactical, one by one, step by step. You need to practice this. This is what I need to see. You need to be able to have more motor control over this part of your body before we can continue. You need to have more, your footwork needs to be more consistent while doing this piece and this piece and this piece. You need to be able to form this shape in your body correctly, and it should look like this, it should feel like this, and this is how you do it. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's like that level.
Well refined and defined.
Yes, has to be. That level of instruction has to be met. If the teacher is going to put those types of obstacles in your way. Now, I'm almost always speaking about like Chinese internal martial arts, because I can stay in my wheelhouse on this one, stay in my lane. But the other thing is, and this is more to the point that you had put out there, like my teacher could show me she could show me the whole thing, right? And this goes back to what Byron had said. It's like, hey man, like if I'm going to watch you on a video, watch a famous teacher on a video, why show the whole thing?
Yeah.
Show it. Show the skill. Show the thing. Because you know what? If it's a real skill, there is a process to get that skill.
Yes.
And if they don't know the process of getting that skill, they'll never fucking get it. They can mimic it, but it's not the thing. It's not. It will not feel the same. It will not transition the same. It just won't be the same. It'll look like it. It'll look like the shell, the shape of it maybe. But, and so many teachers are just so wrapped around the axle, I think, with that concept. Especially like when you look at like older generation guys and people on YouTube, like, either it's like I always say, either they don't know it, they don't know what the skill is because they lost it, they were never taught, or they're hiding it, which, okay, that's fine, that happens, or they're just, really that's it. You got it. They're going to hide it, or they're not showing it. And it's like, okay, either way, it becomes almost meaningless or academic. It's just like, okay, well then that's just them sort of phoning in a video of some sort. And that is not helping to preserve the art in any way. But the neat thing is when you occasionally you'll see teachers out there who have put those types of videos out there, these older generation teachers, where they are showing the skill. And when you have put in the time to understand their methodology, you have trained their methodologies, and then you see it, it's like, it's great. It's like a piece of history that sort of keeps giving. Like every time you look at it, you're like, oh man, he's doing this or he's doing that, or this is it sounds
like validation too.
It is
in your own training.
In a way. Yeah. Yeah. Very much can be.
It's interesting because, I'll see some of the Wing Chun videos, and this is, I guess we could do the internal and external side of things, but I'll see some of the crossover. And, I think that's one of the big things. And that's kind of cool with Wing Chun is you get to see a lot of stuff, and we're more open on the sharing side of things. But our bickering, I feel, hinders a lot on, he's using this hand and not that hand. And they're using this shape and not that shape.
Sure.
And so it's bickering over the minutia. And I'm like, well, you know what? It was funny because I was talking to, I've been really lucky the last couple months, to have some of the 5280 or not 5280, the Colorado School of Wing Chun guys. They're Duncan Leon lineage, which is super good lineage. And I've had 4 or 5 of their guys swing by and say hi in the kitchen Kun, and we've trained, and they've really enjoyed it. They were really open-minded, which kudos to their school. That says super good things about their teachers.
For sure.
Because those guys were respectful. They had a good time. We were laughing and sweating, as much as anything. And I gave them an example about, I'm like, guys, I haven't been on the forums in about 15 to 20 years. But I'll tell you one of the last ones. It was either Ip Chun or Ip Ching, one of the sons of Ip Man. And he was they couldn't tell in the video because it was so old. It would either look like an uppercut or an open hand. And people were arguing, it's this, and this. And I asked the guys, I'm like, which one do you think it was? And they're like, well, we kind of do this. And I'm like, you know what? The hand shape doesn't matter. It matters where it is. And I was explaining that to them, and I kind of gave them some examples. And that kind of, raised the question is like, oh my God, is that why our forms can be different? I'm like, yeah, as long as the hand shape, it focuses not just on the hand shape, but where it's done
Right.
around the body. Cause, you're highlighting an area, in movement. So it was super cool to, see that and talk to them about that. And so how do I say it? Like for us, I felt like a lot of things were hidden in plain sight.
Sure.
Instead of secret, behind the counter. It's like, oh, well, we've got this secret, the fourth form that nobody, we don't really have that, but it's a different kind of secretism that,
Sure.
and the bickering is different. But yeah, I found it fascinating that some of the things can be hidden in plain sight.
Right.
And so sometimes, you might not know what you're looking at, and you might need a different perspective. I think maybe the greatest thing to come out of that, and since we're talking about sharing and hiding stuff and being on a high horse, is, I told those guys, I'm like, I'm not a rival school. I'm a coach. I am, I don't wear the title of Sifu. So I'm not going to steal you guys from your school. That is a full-fledged school. They can get you to the Sifu title. But what I can do is a little bit like Brazilian, and we're talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You can come in and kind of, roll with me because, Chisao, sticky hand, if you will.
Right.
And, I can give you different perspectives on skills that you're building already. And so they really like that, and I'll hope to continue to work with those guys in the future. For that being said, just a closing thought. The last few months, I've had the honor of being on some UK podcasts. I've been on Conversations on Karate with Greg and Sue. And then I've also been on the Anxious Black Belt podcast with my friend Les Bobka. And so we were talking quite a bit, and I was trying to explain to them some concepts from Xingyi. And kind of going along with what you were finishing with is I told the guys, I'm like, listen, I can do an application, but if I don't have the power and the understanding of how Xingyi specifically makes power and uses force in that system, then the application will not be Xingyi.
Right.
And they couldn't get it. And I mean, I think they did. But I think one thing that didn't translate across was I'm not talking about bench press power. I'm not talking about how many times you hit a bag power. I'm not talking about, how much you can squat power. It is a different methodology that is very specific to the Chinese internal systems.
Yeah.
And that process is, it shouldn't be secretive. You should have real detail on how to build that quality and that skill.